A recent report reveals that middle-class families can only afford homes worth half of what they could have purchased in 2020. But before you feel like the housing market is off limits to you, let's give you an optimistic voice. And that voice this morning is Charlotte Mabry of the Charlotte Mabry team, who always comes in with not one topic, but a few, as you call it, your sermon for the morning. So,
I've got a three-point sermon this morning.
A three-point sermon, so take notes as we talk. So first of all, part of your point one is let's don't be ostriches burying our heads in the sand. You got to face the market for what it is right now.
You got to face the market for what it is, and people tend to think of one of two things. They think nothing is wrong, and that houses are still appreciating at a 20% clip, and that multiple offers are out there. And in some cases, that is still the case, but it's very limited. And other people are thinking, well, gee, the sky is falling and the world has ended. And the truth is really somewhere in the middle of all of that. It's not quite that bad. That being said, with 8% and higher interest rates right now, buyers can't afford what they could. I was reading a report yesterday that with 8% interest rates and with home prices like they are, the average person needs to make about $120,000 a year, their family does, to be able to afford the average house right now.
Which now is how much, the average house?
Yeah, going up, pushing much closer to $500,000 nationwide.
Wow.
Our median price here is more in that $300,000 to $350,000 range.
So I think it's kind of worth pausing for just a second, because I heard last night too about the interest rates being 8% and higher. And you can take home ownership for granted if you've been in your house for a while.
Correct.
So I've got a 20-something-year-old daughter. You do. You see that generation wanting to buy a house. I think it's important to center and remember in the 80s, when interest rates were so high, the home price wasn't so high.
Well, here's the workaround, and you talk about 1980s. I started selling homes in 1986. Yes, I am a dinosaur. I've been out there a while. And interest rates had just come down to 10 and 11%. They were at 16 and 18%. But we made a living, and people bought and sold houses with this crazy idea of assuming mortgages. And back then, we would trade mortgages. Now, back in the day, back in the dinosaur day, you didn't have to qualify to assume a mortgage, and every mortgage was assumable for the most part.
I remember this.
Well, that's not the case. Lenders made those changes. But if you think back to 2019, 2020, there are 2 and 3% mortgages out there that are assumable. FHA, VA mortgages, many of them are assumable. Now, you do have to qualify to assume that. But let's say that you are thinking of selling today. You need to transfer and you need to sell. And you have a home that has a 2 or 3% mortgage on it, and your mortgage is a government loan that is assumable. Think what the value of your home might be because you're offering that. So even though home prices may have gone backwards or slowed down, and I do think in the next 90 days we're actually going to see some negative appreciation. That's coming. But it won't matter for you because you will have something that is assumable.
Now, that does not mean that if you have a mortgage currently and it's government backed, if you will, that is necessarily assumable. You have to see if yours is.
I would double check that, but most all FHA and VA loans are assumable if the person that's assuming it can qualify.
Okay.
So there's some ifs there.
So I know that you kind of tongue-in-cheek said, I'm a dinosaur, and I know that. But if you are a consumer buying or selling a house, that's valuable in its own right, Charlotte, because you've been down that road before.
Absolutely. Well, 90% of real estate agents on the ground today have never seen a market like this, and 98% would never know what an adjustable rate mortgage is, or how you would assume a mortgage. I apologize. Talking about changes in rates, there are ways for buyers to get into a loan that's a buy down loan, and many sellers are willing to pay money to help buy down that interest rate. And so what we're seeing today is people buying houses, their initial payment is on like a 5 or 6% interest rate. The next year it might go to 6 or 7%. Then finally on year 3 it moves to that 8% rate. And the lenders are offering one free refinance where you don't pay cost.
Okay.
So if you get into that loan as a buyer at least your payments are a little lower to start with, and then perhaps they'll come down and you'll have a chance to refinance before they go up higher.
Okay, you also mentioned that some people are in denial, thinking that that 20% jump in value is going to continue. Across the board, that's a good thing that it's not.
That is a good thing. It's not sustainable. That's why we are where we are right now, and why it's taking $120,000 family income to afford a house right now. Now, interestingly enough, in years past, nationwide, we've sold about 6 million properties a year. At the end of this year, they're projecting we'll be at 4 million properties. That's a
2 million down.
That's a 30% decrease in available properties, and they think next year will be even less. So when you talk about supply and demand, it's a strange market. Normally you would think when interest rates get really high and people don't buy properties that prices would come down. But because we do still have a huge hole in the number of houses available for sale, those prices, while they may drop a little bit, I don't think it'll be substantial.
Okay, I only have a minute left. If you're a consumer and you're going to go talk to an agent in this crazy market, any advice to offer on what they should be discussing?
I would be asking, have you done this before? Because most people haven't. And for the agents that are out there that have not done this before, we're going to be offering some classes on this, some teaching of this. So if you're listening today and you're an agent, just stay tuned, that's coming. And you know, for you as an agent, and maybe you're a little nervous about this market, we also offer some partnership programs where you can partner with an agent and help them through this market. So that's something that I'd love to talk with them about as well.
Okay, so they can find you, agents can, obviously at the phone number.
Sure.
In terms of those classes you'll be holding, will that be going on social media, on your website?
Absolutely. So just keep your eyes out for that. We're working on that.
Okay, so here's her contact information. She's not a dinosaur. 593-5588 is the phone number. Obviously online, it's simply her name, charlottemabreyteam.com, and she's your optimistic voice. Thanks.
Thank you.
Amen.
Boom.